It's time for Science Corner. Temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean are alarmingly high. Freeberg, a couple of weeks ago, we saw this crazy chart on the X about the Atlantic Ocean temperatures pre-Hurricane Katrina right about now. And take us through this because it's very disconcerting.
There's not much to talk about except to highlight this image, which shows, again, we talked about this a few months ago, hot ocean temperatures drive hurricane and tropical storm activity because as the wind, the air above the ocean starts to move, the energy from the ocean gets pulled out, like things cool down, the water cools down, but that energy actually goes back into pushing the wind to move faster and faster. And that's how tropical storms, cyclones, and hurricanes are formed, is warm ocean temperatures. And there's been this kind of persistent warming since last year in the Atlantic, in this particular region where all the hurricanes form. And normally the hurricane season starts call it August to October. Right now, we are seeing temperatures that are so far beyond what we've seen anytime historically. This image that you're looking at here actually compares the ocean temperatures right now in the Atlantic to where we were at the same time period in 2005, which was a record hurricane year, obviously with Hurricane Katrina, right?
Yeah.
And so the National Hurricane Center, a lot of the climatologists are forecasting that over the next couple of months, we could see and should expect to see probabilistically much larger, stronger, bigger, more frequent hurricanes than we've ever seen historically. So we'll see if it plays out. Just a very small tidbit of news to share. Thought it'd be worth highlighting. Not getting a lot of mainstream media press attention, but
let me ask
certainly
you to just confirm a couple of things for me, because we live in a time where people are questioning science and scientists, and we have institutions we don't trust, whether it's three-letter agencies in Washington or scientists and all these papers being written and everything we're finding out, and nobody trusts anybody, and we're sort of resetting trust. I want to just ask you, as somebody I trust as a scientist, number one, global warming, temperatures increasing, putting aside, what we do about it. Temperatures in the ocean, it is undeniable, are increasing at a rate that you would describe as concerning. Am I correct?
We have not seen in the modern era temperatures in the ocean like we're seeing now. That's a fact, right?
Okay,
so I'm not going to do this whole big prognosis on everything all in one, because I think that's where people feel like there's room for discrediting things.
I'm trying to atomize this.
Yeah, we can be very specific about things. Here's an example. Yes. So this is the sea surface temperature going back to 1981.
Okay.
And as you can see at this point in the year, and the temperature oscillates because of the way the Earth tilts towards the sun. And so at this point in the year, we are seeing right now sea surface temperatures that are beyond anything we've seen historically, and it is continuing to climb. So if this does not taper off or level off, we will see record sea surface temperatures in the August to October timeframe, which will almost certainly push massive hurricane events out of the Atlantic, and they will find their way towards the continental US.
So this is super
Mexico.
Clarifying. This should not be controversial to anybody. We have temperature readings in the ocean, and
just
this
data.
is concerning.
Simply data. It's just data,
simply data, right? So, putting aside what political party you're on and what you think about gas and oil.
I will tell you, there's a lot of theory. One of the theories. So there's theories about El Nino. There's theories about climate change contributing to this. There's also a theory about sulfur dioxide that has now been banned in shipping and cargo vessels that go across the oceans. Last year, they banned sulfur dioxide use in the fuel that's coming out of these. And sulfur dioxide actually reflects sunlight. So as it goes up into the air, into the atmosphere, coming out of these ships, it actually blocks and reflects light.
So that would make the oceans cooler.
And so a lot of folks have said that over the last couple of decades, we've actually dampened the temperature and the warming that's happened on Earth because of all the sulfur dioxide we've been putting up into the atmosphere. But because sulfur dioxide causes acid rain, environmentalists have been pushing for years to ban sulfur dioxide. The problem is with banning sulfur dioxide, you may have this other side effect, which is now more rapid increased warming of the surface and of the oceans.
So these are complex systems, and we should be delicate with them. If you were to give us a prescription here, Freeberg, what's like a basic prescription? Are we just experimenting in a way that is not advisable with this ecosystem, and we should just not run the experiment? I think that might be like a non-political, non-charged way to say it. Like, this experiment is a little bit too crazy to run on the one planet Earth we have. Yeah.
Which experiment?
The experiment of doing things that increase global warming, which would be...
You mean living?
Well, yeah, I mean, burning fossil
fuels. It's not an
fuels.
experiment. People are just acting in their own economic best interest.
Yes. And if that economic best interest increses temperature so much, do you have a fear, Freeberg, that it will compromise the oceans and damage them to a point that would be extremely concerning? Is I guess what I'm getting at.
There is a reduction in biodiversity that's underway. We can see that using data. But to Chamath's point, humans have prioritized the progression of individuals forward. China had 1 billion people that came out of poverty in 30 years.
Yeah.
And they came out of poverty because of the industrialization of the production of consumable goods that population gets to consume. They get access to more calories, they get access to more foods, they get to have cars, they get to have houses. All of that, making cement, making concrete, all of those things require industrial systems. And those industrial systems have a cost. That cost is the dollar economic cost, which we're kind of rationalizing with greater productivity. Then there's this whole cost that's externalized.
Got it. We understand that. Yeah, sure.
So that's the tension is like, if you're wealthy, if you're a wealthy nation, if you're the Western Europe or the United States, you get to stand up and say, stop carbon. But if you're the rest of the world, you're like, I want to have a home. I want to have a car.
You want to have the same evolution Chamath that America went through or Europe.
I want to progress as a person. I want to progress as a society. And that's the tension that makes this a very difficult problem to resolve, which is how do more of the world get to progress while
are you worried,
being cognizant
is what I'm trying to get at, Freeberg.
I am deeply optimistic. So let me just say this.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm getting at. Are you optimistic or are you pessimistic? Tell us.
I believe strongly that there is a strong relationship between the output of atmospheric carbon and the deleterious effects we see in ecosystems.
Okay.
That is something I feel like is true from data. I am not, however, as pessimistic that the world is going to end in the next decade or two, because I see improvements in productivity, meaning how many units we get out for every unit in, or how many units we get out for every unit of carbon that's emitted. And those productivity, meaning better technology systems, are rapidly changing how we make things and how people are accessing goods and services. And I think that that's why I am because I'm a techno-optimist, I'm optimistic about where things are headed. And it is also why I get very angry and upset about any efforts or attempts to slow down the adoption of technology, because these things will pull people forward and make that happen faster without all of the deleterious side effects that we've unfortunately had to do in the absence of technology.
So Chamath, I'll pull you into here. So based on what Freeberg is saying here, yes, these things are occurring, but the technology and the advances we're seeing in but one example, solar, and then some people might bring up nuclear and other ones. We just had Phil Deutsch at my conference this week give a great talk on this. Solar is just getting so cheap. Batteries are getting so cheap. Putting batteries in your home, putting solar in, and then putting data centers next to nuclear things. This is all adding up to we can solve this problem. And so you too feel optimistic about this?
Yeah, totally. I think that climate change stalled when it was an emotional and philosophical rallying cry, largely of the left. When instead it became something about resilience and domestic manufacturing, both sides came together. And I think we're at a point now where the US's energy independence plus the amount of reliance on non-carbon-based fuels will drive a sea change in the United States. I think it'll be copied in Western Europe. And it's also going to be at enough of a low price point where it'll get embraced in the developing world. So it's an incredible example of, if you want to take an idea and a bunch of solutions and want to die on the hill of messaging and platitudes, it'll make no progress. But if instead you're willing to sort of be less extreme about it and actually just frame it in economic value add, all of a sudden everybody embraces it and it just becomes obvious. So I think that we're going to do wonders over the next 20 and 30 and 40 years all over the world to push back on the general state of warming. But I think it will have happened because the economic incentives aligned, not because of a philosophical or emotional framing of the issue.